I shall now review Crusade in Europe by General Eisenhower. Previously, I have reviewed books by David Irving, Dr. Edward Dutton, Antelope Hill, and Jason Kerner. I reviewed them based on a number of metrics which I apply here. Books are for reading, so does this book invite me to read. My copy of the book is 521 pages long, 582 pages when you include footnotes, indexes, etc. It measures 8 3/4 inches by 5½ inches by 1½ inches thick. It fits easily in one hand and is not especially heavy. Larger or heavier books can be awkward to use, but not this one. The title is Crusade in Europe. It is a bold title and indicates purpose, resolve, struggle, and a noble cause. This is an accurate foreshadowing of the book's content. It is short, punchy, and memorable, and I could leave it there but for one detail. If you did not know your history, you might assume the book is about a literal crusade as ordered by the Pope, and that could cause confusion since we associate crusades with the Holy Land. Even so, a good title. The cover is dark at the top, against which the author's name is clear and white. You could be fooled into thinking the author name is the title. General Eisenhower himself fills the cover in his beige uniform. The color scheme is soft and easy on the eye, but the title itself is in red and is against both the black and the beige. The title does not stand out as much as it should, I think. The back of the book is cream with red text at the top and a black blurb. It is easy to read the blurb, which is an extract from an article. As such, it is a little wordy, but serves as an accurate summary/review of the book. Everything you need to know is in the blurb. The spine is black, leaning into brown at the bottom, with all text in white. The book's title is easier to read now, and is unambiguously the title, since it has larger font. The text alignment is vertical, so it is easier to read should only the spine be visible. The language is plain and simple and straightforward. The author is trying to convey his message, so no extravagance in language is allowed to obfuscate the message. No doubt the author's experience in conveying his meaning when lives were at stake has served him here. Unfortunately for the modern reader, this language can render the narrative very light on detail in places. However, when it comes to explaining decisions that were made, or conundrums that faced the author, the language is a great advantage. Complex issues can be broken down into digestible chunks, like logical constructs or mathematical proofs. The reader is never lost in the weeds, for there are none. There are footnotes at the end of the book, and occasional photographs and maps throughout the book. These are interesting, but the text does not rely on them. They are not essential, but are a welcome luxury, especially given how unluxurious the language is. The photos and maps are spread out during the book, not all clustered together, as is common in history books. They arrive as interesting diversions to break up what could otherwise be a very dense book. The book is mostly chronological, from when America entered the war, or rather a bit before then, to when Eisenhower left Europe after the war. Occasionally there is a sentence early on referencing things that happened later. Eisenhower did not receive von Arnim in Tunisia in 1943, but refers then to receiving Jodl in 1945. Or when discussing dealing with the press in 1945, he refers back to 1942. However, it is essentially chronological. There is a little inconsistency with the level of detail afforded to different events. Sometimes a big event, by today's standards, gets under a page, while a minor event Eisenhower personally experienced might get more than a page to tell the anecdote. The reader cannot be sure when this will happen. The book is about the operations in North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France, the Low Countries, and Germany. The focus is on the combined Allied headquarters, setting it up, getting people used to it, putting it into practice. This is a recurring theme. The book is the story of the triumph of the Allies, and the triumph was the fact that they could bring all their forces to bear in a coordinated manner. Coordination is key, and this comes across throughout the book. Along the way, many things are not discussed in detail, but that makes sense. As Supreme Commander, Eisenhower did not need to know the precise detail of the plans prepared by a Patton or a Bradley or Devers or Montgomery or Clark or Brooke. The overall strategy was Eisenhower's concern, and we see this in the book. This leads to interesting ways of looking at famous events. For example, People will often call Operation Market Garden a failure. They will say that intelligence was ignored, or it was too ambitious, it was this, that, and the other. People say that seizing Antwerp was a hollow victory, since it was unusable until the Scheldt estuary was cleared. People can be very down on it, but not Eisenhower. To defeat Germany, he needed a major port to support the invasion of Germany. That was Antwerp. To take Antwerp, he needed the port, land east of the port to keep the Germans at arm's length, and the Scheldt estuary. Market Garden provided the land east of the port. The estuary was cleared. They ticked the boxes. It was a success. Similarly, the Hürtgen Forest has been described as a German victory. But even though it was tough on the Americans, it did not force them to change their strategic plan, so Eisenhower is satisfied that it achieved its aim. In fact, just about the only mistake to which Eisenhower admits is not reducing the Colmar pocket earlier than he did. I have watched many documentaries and read many books on the war, but I find that this book is a very different way to view the war. It is interesting to read at the end Eisenhower's thoughts for the future. He hopes that peacetime can be as coordinated as the victorious war was, with a global supreme command to which all the nations would necessarily have to cede some authority. In 1948, I bet the prospect was so promising, but nearly 80 years later, the promise has aged poorly, I think. I enjoy the book, since it is so different in how it presents the war. It is very devoid of drama in its telling of one of mankind's most dramatic episodes.